Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Julie and I primarily make content surrounding topics such as mental health, music, as well as makeup. Today's video is a little bit different if you couldn't tell from the title. So in honor of Pride Month, I wanted to come out, and this is something that unfortunately I struggle with my own internalized type things. It's interesting to me because I feel like it's easier for me to come out about my mental health conditions than it is to come out about my identity, sexuality, etc. But I'm just gonna get on with it. I'm bisexual. I'm biromantic and I'm bisexual. I want to talk about this for Pride Month. I've been planning to come out on my channel for a while. I will say that I am out in my personal life. My loved ones, anyone who follows me on my private social medias is aware that I'm bisexual. I've been out and open about it probably since high school, although I still was a little shy about it in the beginning. And then into my 20s, I tended to be more open, especially when I made more friends in the LGBT community. So there's a few things within my sexuality that I want to talk about today because I'm sure there are many of you out there who are part of the LGBTQ plus community as well. So for my story on how I realized what my sexuality was, the first time I ever had a crush on someone was in kindergarten. Of course, it was the bad boy in kindergarten. So I had a crush on a boy. I knew I liked boys. I thought he was cute. I thought he was funny. I had all the feels at only 5 years old. But there was another theme going on where I would have a girl best friend and I would really care about them, but over time I realized it was a little bit deeper than a platonic love, even if that was an intimate platonic love. I thought girls were so pretty, I couldn't stop staring at them. I really was attracted to girls with blonde hair when I was in elementary school. I don't think I realized this, but a lot of the girlfriends that I was close to that I made had blonde hair, and I took them under my wing and I really enjoyed being their friend. But there was a little more there. I just was too young to understand. I wasn't well educated. And growing up, I knew that you could be gay, I knew that you could be a lesbian, but I had never heard of bisexual. I had never heard of bisexuality. It was not a thing that I was educated on. Moving on toward middle school. Middle school was probably around the time when I heard people talking more about sexuality. I knew people who are openly gay. I knew some classmates who were openly bisexual. But it was very confusing because a lot of them identified more as bi-curious. They weren't entirely sure of their sexuality, and that's okay because sexuality is something that can be very confusing. It's entirely personal and it's fluid, so it can change over time. You don't have to commit to one sexuality and say, that's it, everyone's gonna think I'm a poser if I don't commit to this sexuality. That's definitely not how this form of identity takes on or works. Moving forward from that, I would say my issue with bisexuality is that it was sexualized. Guys that I dated in monogamous relationships would encourage me to have a girlfriend or make out with girls a lot of the time. And I just feel like it was because they didn't take my sexuality seriously. They just thought girls kissing girls was hot. And this is not fair to me. That actually is cheating because I genuinely am attracted to men and women, and whatever you want to do in your personal relationships is fine. But this is something I wasn't entirely comfortable with and I was confused about. However, at the same time, I really did want to explore my sexuality more because I especially felt very physically attracted to females. The sexual attraction, the bisexuality piece was definitely prevalent in there, and it was something I wanted to explore and experiment with. However, as I said previously, I do also identify as biromantic because I've had strong romantic, intimate feelings for girls as well. It was just a confusing thing back in high school because I felt like a lot of people weren't actually bisexual. They just wanted a label and would flirt with their girlfriends and make out with girls at parties. And it just seemed like a lot of it was for attention. I can't speak for everyone because, as I said, Plenty of people struggle with sexuality, but I'm sure that you know people like this, and this makes a mockery of bisexuality, in my opinion, and it also made it a lot harder for me to come out because I felt like I wasn't going to be taken seriously. Like if I say to a friend, hey, I'm bisexual, and they're like, oh, that's hot, you're sexualizing my sexuality, which is kind of weird. I guess it somewhat makes sense, but at the same time, that's not really the welcoming response that I want when I come out to someone. So I definitely going through high school was very confusing for me. Another aspect is that I have never officially dated a girl. I've gotten close. I've had girls I've had feelings for. It's been quite the roller coaster and has fallen apart even when the feelings were reciprocated a lot of the time. And especially because these girls a lot of the time were my friends. And no, I don't believe in the friend zone, but I will tell you that using dating apps in the past before I was dating my current partner, I would talk to girls and they would almost never flirt with me, even if I tried, even though it's kind of new territory for me and awkward, and I would say, oh, you're really pretty. That's something that platonic female friends do together. So it didn't ever really turn into anything besides making new friends, which was somewhat disappointing, and I can understand how it may be uncomfortable on both sides. Another issue that I have with being bisexual is all of the biphobia. And as I said previously, I have my own internalized biphobia, and I think many of us do in ways, and I am sincerely working to overcome that because I have no reason to be ashamed of who I am. I have no reason to be ashamed of who I'm romantically or sexually attracted to, and I should be able to be open about it. And I think Pride Month especially is the perfect time to be open about it because so many of us go through identity struggles, whether it's with gender identity, sexuality, etc. And it's just so important for me to be vocal and be part of this community on my channel. It took me a little bit to have the courage to come forward because of said biphobia and because of how I've been invalidated for my sexuality for so long. Examples for me are that I've primarily dated males. I've had people say, well, she's only dated guys and never really experimented with girls too much, so I don't know why she looks for girls on dating apps, or I don't know why she thinks she's bisexual, and that is by erasure, that is biphobic, and that is unacceptable. I feel like the bisexuality piece is confusing for a lot of people, but I'd rather have a friend who says, I don't really get that, but I respect that. I can understand if you can't wrap your head around being attracted to multiple people of different gender identities, but I truly encourage you to do your research on it, because it's important. There's this discrepancy that if you're in a same-sex relationship, then that makes you gay as a woman and not bi, and vice versa. If you are dating a cis male, then you are straight and not bi. And regardless of who you choose to date, it does not take away from your sexuality, and no one should make you feel that way, because it's very invalidating and deeply hurtful for something so personal like attraction. So I encourage you not to do that and recognize bisexuality as valid. Another point I want to make is that bisexuality and pansexuality have some overlap and they have some differences. I admit I'm still not fully educated on this, but from what I've read, pansexuality is being attracted to people regardless of gender. So you're open to being attracted to all gender identities, and it has less to do with gender for you and more about who the person is or if you find them attractive and whatnot. And although I do identify with pieces of that, bisexuality, the term bi refers to two, and there's a misperception that bisexuals exclude trans people and non-binary people, but the definition of bisexuality is actually two or more gender identities. I will say from personal experience, I have never had feelings for a non-binary or trans person, but they are entirely valid in their identity. And when I say I'm attracted to men and women, I am open to the possibility of other gender identities. And I do want to also mention that I recognize when I say men and women, that is inclusive of anyone who identifies as a man or woman. This is inclusive of the transgender community. And just because it's something I haven't experienced, because I will admit I've met a limited amount of trans people in my life, it doesn't mean that it's something I'm not open to. So there is a discrepancy where people even stigmatize bisexuality further and say that we are transphobic. And for me, that is not the case at all. I do everything I can to respect other communities of people, and my bisexuality is valid, just like someone's pansexuality is valid. And whatever label makes you feel comfortable, whatever label you identify with, or you hate labels, you don't want a label, you like who you like, and that's it. That's totally fine. You can say I identify as LGBT and not fall into a specific category, although there are so many of them. There's nothing wrong with that. Another issue I have is when people say, oh, I can't stand all these labels, it makes things so confusing and it's ridiculous and we don't need these labels. So look, if you don't want the label, that's totally fine. You don't have to label your sexuality or identity, nothing. But for other people out there who are struggling, who feel alone in their romantic feelings, in their gender identity, sexuality, etc., labels can be so validating and humanizing, especially now that we've got more specific with them, because these people can find communities of other people with a similar identity and receive that support, because that's so important. I also want to talk about the mental health piece of sexuality. So LGBTQ plus individuals are extremely prone to mental health conditions, especially transgender individuals, because of how much oppression and discrimination people on this spectrum face in society. And that's really sad to think about. However, it's important that therapists out there, my future self included, take courses on sexuality and how to specifically treat this population in a very nurturing way. Because from what I've read, people on the LGBTQ plus spectrum really do benefit from a more nurturing form of counseling. If you don't know about trauma-informed care, I did make a video on it, and it's all about being empathic, humanizing, validating, real, genuine, self-disclosing with some ethical limitations to show that person you've been through it too and you understand. And also I think it's very nice that there are some non-binary, trans, as well as LGBT clinicians out there, because that's going to make someone like me feel safer talking about my sexuality. And it's great. It's great there's people who specialize in those things, and we really need more of that. So if you are on the spectrum and you are interested in mental health, I would strongly encourage you to work in mental health, especially with my experience. I interned with teens, and there were definitely teens on the LGBT plus spectrum, and we connected. We really did. And I may not understand everything that everyone goes through, but I can relate to a lot of things as a biromantic and bisexual woman. And I think that my background with my sexuality makes me an even stronger person to be in the mental health field. I also think it's important that I'm more vocal about my bisexuality on my channel as well as my social media platforms, and I plan to be doing that moving forward. I also would love to do some videos on sexuality and mental health and specific implications and how we can address them, because all of these things are important. They're important to me. They're important to spread awareness about and educate the world on, because there are a lot of people that sadly are not educated on this, but there are things that we can do to help. And as nervous as I can be about being open about my sexuality, I want to give those of you out there the courage to be open about it as well. I am not by any means pressuring people to come out. Please do not come out if you're not ready. But if you have a safe, trusted person in your life and you feel prepared to come out, that might be a really good thing, as long as this is someone who's going to be receptive to it and accepting and supportive of you. And I'm also a safe person. If you ever want to DM me to talk about sexuality or anything like that, I am all ears and I am here for you. So that's it. I'm bisexual, I'm biromantic, I'm proud AF, I'm hyped to talk about it. I got my Bi Pride makeup on. A video of me doing this makeup will be out on Monday. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel as well. leave a comment down below letting me know if you know a lot about bisexuality and what you identify as, if you're comfortable sharing that. Let's have an open conversation in the comments. You can also follow me on my social medias. My Instagram is Julie_counseling. My Twitter is JulieCounseling with no underscore. And my Facebook page will be linked down below as well. And I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye guys.